For our speaker during the presentation. And it's my pleasure to welcome back a familiar face to all of us, Sheryl Paynter, who has been so generous with her time through this time of COVID-19. She's shared her knowledge and expertise of the SBA programs in several webinars with us. Today is no exception. So Sheryl Paynter, who is the lead lender relations specialist and lead economic development specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration New Jersey District Office. She lives just a few miles up the road on the Jersey Shore. Sheryl and her husband, as I always like to say in the introduction, are also small business owners. They have a surf shop, and so she knows firsthand the experiences that so many are going through. So Sheryl, welcome, and we're looking forward to your presentation today. I'm just going to let everybody know that we're going to take questions at the end of Sheryl's presentation, and you can enter those in the chat, or we'll also take questions using the raised hand feature. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen. So if you need any help, just let us know and we'll guide you through that process as well. So Sheryl, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. It's really great to be here. Hold on, would you like to join later? There we go. There we go. Yes, so this has been a crazy year for everybody. And the Jersey Shore is certainly no exception. And I know that a lot of seasonal businesses are just hoping to get to Labor Day. So the good news is there's only 2.5 more weeks left, but who's counting? But I would like to go through a presentation for you today, which I'm very excited to give. And let me just, here we go, application. Let me just get it. Where are you? Hold on. There it is. I'm going to click share. Can you see that?
Yes, we could see it.
Perfect. So before I get into the heart of the presentation, I really want to just highlight the 3 different programs that are out there, one of which you may not even be familiar with. PPP has certainly gotten the most press. The EIDL loans, economic injury disaster loans through the SBA, has also gotten a fair amount of press. But there is a new loan program called CARL out there that is administered through the SBA as well that you might not know about. And I do want to note that this information is current as of July the 30th. I always make sure that I put the date in the presentation, and the slide deck will be sent out after the presentation. So don't worry about getting every single note on the slide. And the reason I do put this date is Congress certainly continues to pass new rules and regulations, and when they come back from recess, hoping that we are going to hear of more stimulus for the economy, but until then, this is what is current as of today. So I want to also point people to the sba.gov/NJ website. There is a resource guide that is the magazine for the SBA, and it is actually per district office. So there is a magazine about all of the different local resources that are available through the SBA, as well as a summary of all of our loan programs, and also an introduction for government contracting opportunities, if that might be of interest to you. Also, I really want to point out the calendar that is on our website. In that calendar, we allow our official resource partners, which is SCORE, the Small Business Development Center, and the 2 Women Business Centers under the SBA umbrella to post what different webinars they have going on throughout the state. There might be something going on at a Bergen County SBDC, for example, that you might be interested in. Maybe it's about marketing or QuickBooks or just something. And in that calendar, we'll have everything that is available. It's usually, it's either low cost or no cost. So that is just a plug for exploring what is on the SBA New Jersey District Office website. If you are interested in getting free business counseling through resource partners and you're unclear where to find them, there are these 3 links that are listed here that you can click into. Again, this slide deck will be available, so you will have that at your fingertips. So I want to just touch on the Community Advantage Recovery Loans program that was just rolled out. And it launched on July the 22nd, so it is only a couple weeks old. And what it targets is businesses in underserved markets. An underserved market is traditionally, it is done by census tract. There are hub zones in which the demographic is a poorer economic. There are underserved, economically disadvantaged people. There are many different ways to define underserved, but if you are particularly interested in this program, I encourage you to contact the people that are administering this program. The maturity date of the loan, and it is a loan, and it stands for Community Advantage Recovery Loan Program. It is a Community Advantage lender who administers these programs. What is a Community Advantage lender? These are economic development organizations who are created to help our community through different programs. They will be giving up to 15, not up to, but the minimum of 15 hours of technical assistance, otherwise known as free business counseling, to borrowers, as well as providing this loan with a lower interest rate, and the fees, because a lot of times fees are what hurts a small business from being able to apply for a loan, but the SBA will be the ones that will pay the lender the fee for the business counseling, as well the application. Let's see, and it has to be tailored to the business, and these are all the different types of technical assistance under the CARL program that could be administered to that small business borrower. Of course, the question is, who in New Jersey can I go to? There are 3 Community Advantage Recovery Loan lenders in the state of New Jersey. I reached out to all 3 of them, and I asked them what they wanted me to put on this slide. So they all look a little different, but this is their contact information on how to contact them. So if you are interested in such a loan, please contact them, and you can find out through them if you do qualify. And then I'm just touching on economic injury disaster. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits, a 30-year term. Payments are deferred for a year, though interest accrues. I want to make sure people know that. And this loan, all three of the loans, are intended for recovery and maintenance of a small business. I've gotten questions, what about if I want to expand my business? The Recovery Act specifically is intended for businesses that were in operation before February 15th of this year, and it is intended to help these businesses maintain and recover. Expansion is not the parameter of what the CARES Act is intended to do. So that would not be an eligible use of proceeds for any of these three programs. And if you have any questions, if you have an application out there, if you have any type of questions, the field office, our specialty is the PPP loan program. The SBA disaster is a completely different arm of the SBA, so we really have nothing to do with it. So if you do have questions, please call or email. And if you get into a crazy bind on something, you can reach out to me, and I can try to find somebody that can answer your question. But again, this is not my specialty. Most of the times I would need to refer you to either the email or the phone number. The EIDL advance, it's fully allocated. There are no new EIDL advances occurring. So I don't really want to touch too much on that. I do want to touch on reporting SBA fraud that you might be aware of. You would report that to the SBA's Officer of Inspector General, and you could through any of the following methods. Also, I do want to highlight, if you do submit a complaint online, you can do it anonymously. You would check a box that you want to submit it anonymously and you do not want to be contacted. There are some people that are afraid to, for retaliation, to submit a complaint. So there is a venue in which you could submit fraud in which you do not have to identify yourself. So without further ado, I do want to talk about PPP loan forgiveness. Being able to apply for the PPP loan program ended on August the 8th, so no new applications. It was a hard stop by Congress. It occurred at midnight on August the 8th. It literally, the portal closed. The good news is there were a lot of money. I believe it was $130 billion out of 600 and change that had been available that was still left over. So hopefully all who wanted to receive PPP loan funds were able to receive that money. In the first round, there were businesses that were locked out of applying because they were not customers with business accounts or business loans at various institutions. That got rectified in the second round. FinTech came online, your Cabbages of the world, payroll, not payroll, what are they called? PayPal accepted applications, as well as lender match through the SBA.gov website, helped link non-customer at institutions with being able to apply and receive a small business loan. So hoping everybody out there was able to apply and receive what they were eligible for. So what happened is by the end of it, the loan provided would pay up to 24 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. These funds were able to be used for interest, rent, and utilities. The maximum loan size was 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost, with a step-by-step calculator that was on the Treasury website. purpose is to keep the employees on the payroll or hire quickly. And I just want to confirm that I'm still online. Vicki, can you confirm?
Yeah, Cheryl, you're good. We can see you and hear you.
Okay. And you can hear me? Perfect. I just want to make sure. Thank you. So there were 7 key changes that did occur over time. The first key change was that the initial loan forgiveness covered period was 8 weeks after loan disbursement, but it went out to 24 weeks or December 31st, whichever came first. That was the hard stop to have a covered period. The lower the requirement that 75% of a business owner's loan proceeds must be used for payroll costs during the loan forgiveness period, it lowered it down to 60%. The rest of it could be used for other business costs. If the full amount of the PPP loan was not spent, the rest of it would become a loan. It provided safe harbor options, and I will talk about the safe harbor options, that if you didn't use all of the proceeds due to reductions in payroll, that you were still eligible for forgiveness. And we will talk about the reductions in full-time equivalent employees that were able to get excluded from not being forgiven. It did increase to 5 years the maturity of PPP loans that were approved by the SBA on or after June 5th, 2020. Now, June 5th, 2020 is when this rule went into effect. So for loans that were approved before June 5th, they were originally with a 2-year loan period after that. So the closing docs, a loan had given to a PPP borrower stated 2 years. So as a result, it's a negotiation between the borrower and the lender to extend that period to 5 years. Because that's how the loans were originally done, and they're hard pieces of paper, the lender has the option of stating yes or no, whether they want to extend that loan period from 2 to 5 years. They can't be forced to. So I want to make sure that people are aware of that. It also extended the deferral period for a borrower for the repayment for 10 months after the end of the borrower's loan forgiveness period, though interest does continue to accrue for that portion that is not forgiven during that 10-month period. It removed the restriction of participating in the deferment of Social Security payroll tax if you received a PPP loan. Now you could defer that tax through December 31st, 2020, and you could pay the balance of the deferred amount half the following year in 2021, and the other half in 2022, December 31st. What are the eligible use of proceeds for a PPP loan? Payroll costs, interest payments. Note it's on real or personal property that was incurred before February 1st, 2020. I do get a lot of questions about rent obligations or interest payments. If you have a home-based business, for example, and you did not have any portion of that incurred as a business expense that you paid taxes on in 2019, you cannot use that as a business expense for PPP in 2020. It has to have been included in your 2019 tax return to be eligible for PPP as either an interest payment or as a business rent obligation. It can't just suddenly appear in 2020. That also is for your business utility payments and your interest payments on any other business debt that was incurred before February 15, 2020. Again, you're comparing apples to apples for what happened in 2019 and what you expected to happen in 2020. You can utilize the PPP loan to refi an SBA economic injury disaster loan made from January 31st, 2020 through April 3rd, 2020. You do need to ensure that at least 60% of the use of proceeds on what you refied were used for payroll to have full forgiveness. Again, I'm highlighting the 60% of payroll towards payroll. It's very important if you want your PPP loan fully forgiven. Maturity date, we talked about that. The loan disbursement, the lender needed to make a one-time full disbursement of that PPP loan within 10 calendar days of loan approval. Interest rate is 1%, and the fees, no SBA upfront or annual servicing fees, and the lenders may not charge the applicant or the borrower fees, and the prepayment penalty was 0. So what expenses can be included in payroll costs? Salary, wages, commissions, paid leave, or tips. And these are limited to the first $100,000 on an annualized basis per employee. The employer contributions for employee health insurance, they can be included. And again, they would need to have included in the prior year. Workman's comp is not included, and any pre-tax or after-tax contributions by employees is not included. Your state and local taxes assessed on compensation, you would find that information if you had a payroll processing that you could look up for pay period, for example. You could calculate those calculations. For a sole proprietor or independent contractor, it's limited to the first $100,000 on an annualized basis or the lesser of what was claimed on the prior year's taxes. Very important. What expenses are not included in payroll costs? Salary, wages, commissions, or tips in excess of the first $100,000 per employee. Payments to independent contractors. The reason independent contractors have the ability to directly apply for a PPP loan themselves. So therefore, you would be double counting by having them on your own payroll, as well as them being able to apply for their own loan. Any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside the United States, reason being, this is intended to help U.S. based businesses get back to work. Qualified sick leave wages for which a credit is allowed under Section 7001 of the Families First. So you can't double dip is what this is saying. Second one is also pretty clear. For a sole proprietor, employee health insurance, contributions, etc. So I want to highlight on PPP forgiveness. And this is only an introduction. So full guidance can be found at either SBA.gov or Treasury.gov website. And I would encourage you to personally review these documents regularly as updates are continuously posted on these websites. what is the general process to obtain loan forgiveness? And this is found at treasury.gov. IFR stands for interim final rule. And those are simply the rules that you keep seeing when the Congress passes something new. A business owner submits the loan forgiveness application to the lender. The lender has 60 days to issue a decision to the SBA on whether they partially or wholly are forgiving your loan. If they are partially forgiving their loan, please don't worry, because there is an appeal process at the end of this in which you could state why you felt that you were eligible for full forgiveness, and that is in the treasury.gov website. And there is, once you click on that, on the left-hand side, it says assistance for small businesses. So you simply click on that, and that's where all the different guidance. And it's pretty streamlined on how to find the various guidance, such as appealing. But what happens is the SBA is 90 days to review and determine if the borrower is eligible. So in total, there's 5 months from when you submit to when you would receive an answer. However, be rest assured, lenders and the SBA are working as quickly as possible to make sure that this 5 months is not met and that everything happens a lot sooner. The lender is responsible for notifying the borrower, so everything goes through the lender. If only a portion is forgiven, it must be repaid on or before the 2 or 5 year maturity of the loan, and interest occurs during this deferment period. When can I apply? Anytime after the loan proceeds have been used up. You don't have to wait for the full 24 weeks or 8 weeks, and it is up to the borrower to decide whether they want the 8 weeks or the full 24 weeks. If you opt for the full 24 weeks and you've used up all of your loan proceeds, let's say in week 18, then you can apply for your loan forgiveness in week 18. You don't have to wait until the 24 weeks are over. The SBA and the lenders are not looking for a deluge at the end of the 24-week period. So as soon as you can, apply. The loan platform for forgiveness has already launched. August the 10th is when it came up live and running. Most lenders are currently accepting applications. I know that some lenders are not yet, and the reason being is August 10th is when this lender platform came into existence. So I know, for example, Wells Fargo has been creating an online portal that they are going to allow borrowers to submit and online. So what they're doing is they're mimicking the PPP loan forgiveness applications. So once you are able to submit, it should be done pretty quickly. So although we became live on August 10th, remember, these lenders received notification at that time, even what the platform looked like. So they had to go hustle and create a way to be able to interact with the SBA, as well as to be able to interact with their borrowers. So some needed some time to be able to handle the request. So there are 2 different loan forgiveness applications. The full-blown one is 5 pages, and the EZ application is only 3 pages. The good news is they're both, there's instruction sheets on both, and what I'll do at the end of this call is I will send the links for both applications, as well as the instructions for both applications over to Vicki and Nina, and they can send that out to everybody along with the PowerPoint presentation so that you can easily find. And if a lender is going to be open soon and they're not accepting applications, you can still go through and fill out everything. You can print it out and write in all of the numbers so that when you're able to apply, you have all the information. And I know I actually did it for my own business, and I have a lot less anxiety knowing that, you know, I can, when I'm ready to apply, I can just fill it out and click submit. So for the EZ application, it's only 3 pages, and you are available to utilize this easier method if you fall into one of these 3 categories. If you're self-employed and you have no employees and you didn't get any PPP funds for employee salaries, it's very easy to utilize this with that. The other is if you're a business owner with employees and you did not reduce annual salary or hourly wages of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period. So if you're a small business and you had to reduce per employee by an employee by 25% or less to be able to stay in business, you were able to do that for the covered period. But as long as you didn't do that by more than 25%, you were able to use the EZ application. And you also didn't reduce the number of employees or average paid hours between January 1st, 2020 and the end of the covered period, after taking into account the exemptions that I will discuss shortly. The third way you could utilize the EZ application is if you're a business owner and you didn't reduce the salary, but you were also unable to operate, so you still paid employees even though you were unable to operate. And if you were unable to operate, you need to produce documentation. For example, maybe you were a gym, and we all know indoor gyms were closed down due to an executive order with the state of New Jersey. So you would need a copy of that executive order that you were unable to operate, though you still did pay your employees. If you did not fit into any of these 3 categories, then you simply utilize the other PPP loan forgiveness application. Again, we're talking 3 pages versus 5 pages, so not crazy onerous if you have to utilize the full-blown PPP loan forgiveness application. So what are the exemptions that you can utilize for safe harbors? Option 1, I'm sorry, it should say 1 and 2, these, but anyway, a business owner is exempt from reduction in loan forgiveness based on full-time employee equivalents if both of the following conditions are met. A business owner reduced their full-time employee levels in the period beginning February 15th and ending April 26, 2020, but then they restored their full-time equivalent employee levels by not later than December 31st, 2020 to the full-time employee levels that were in the borrower's pay period that included February 15th, 2020. That is one way you could apply for exemption. I have gotten a lot of questions. What does full-time equivalent mean? You can count a full-time equivalent one of 2 ways. One is literally by a body. If you have 10 people, you can count them as FTEs. If you're a seasonal business, you might want to count them by the amount of hours worked per pay period. For example, if you have employees that worked an average of, and it's by employees, so you have employee A that worked 40 hours in a week, regularly, and you can take a weighted average based on the covered period. So for a seasonal business, you could take a covered period for that employee, and let's say they worked 40 hours every week. Very easy. You come up with 1. Let's say they wound up averaging 30 hours a week. So you wind up having a 0.75% full-time employee. So you would have, let's say you had 2 employees under those 2 different parameters, then you have a 1.75 full-time employees that you can compare period over period. So you can create an Excel spreadsheet, or you can ask your lender or your accountant or your payroll processing to help you calculate those numbers. Safe harbor option 2. A business owner is exempt from the reduction in loan forgiveness if you can state that in good faith you can document that you're unable to operate due to compliance with federal state issue between March 1st and December 31st. There you go. And the business owner could be eligible if you were unable to rehire individuals who were employees, or unable to hire similarly qualified employees for unfulfilled positions by December 31st. If the business owner made a good faith written offer to rehire an employee during the covered period, which was rejected by the employee. So having a letter that you sent to that employee and having it certified and including a copy of that would help. And I'd also suggest reporting that to the New Jersey Department of Labor. I know that a lot of businesses are getting contacted lately by the Department of Labor because everybody seems to be wanting to get unemployment benefits even if they're not qualified. Especially, there are individuals out there who are actually making more in unemployment than they were making before unemployment. So they're refusing to come back to work. So as long as you can show the letter that you tried to reemploy that individual, were unable to, and that you were unable to hire similarly qualified people, then you would be eligible. Also, I highly suggest reporting that to the State Department of Labor. It's actually easy to click into that, and you can click anonymously as well on an individual. If you know maybe they're working elsewhere and getting under the table wages, and you feel that they should be reported. Frequently asked questions. What effect does a business owner's reduction in an employee's salary or wages have on the loan forgiveness amount? If it was done in excess of 25%, it will generally result in a reduction in the loan forgiveness amount calculated on a per employee basis, not in the aggregate. How should a business owner seeking loan forgiveness account for the salary wage reduction based on a reduction in the number of an employee? It applies only to the portion of the decline in employee salary and wages that is not attributable to an FTE reduction. So it really is by an employee basis. Again, if you're able to hire similar skilled employees to replace, then you would not have a reduction. Will a borrower's loan forgiveness amount be reduced if an employee is fired for causes, voluntarily resigns, or voluntarily requests a schedule reduction? No. The administrator and the secretary have decided to exempt such employees from the calculation of the FTE reduction penalty, provided that records are maintained. Can I make advance payments or prepay expenses that I expect to be incurring? No. What if my billing payroll dates fall just outside of the 8 or 24-week window? There are allowances for flexibility on this, but the cost has to be incurred during the 8 or 24-week period. So that is the highlight, that the costs have to be incurred during this covered period. What if my rent, utility, or mortgage payments are normally due just outside? There are allowances for flexibility. Non-payroll costs can be incurred or paid on or before the next regular billing date, even if that billing date is just after the 8 or 24-week period. Our salary, wages, or commission payments to furloughed employees, bonuses, or hazard pay during the covered period eligible for loan forgiveness? Yes, as long as they do not exceed an annual salary of $100,000 as prorated for the covered period. What if I cannot run my business right now? I just want to explicitly state that they are expected to be used regardless of the borrower's ability to have their business open. Can I hire new staff? Yes. So this is the end of the formal part of my presentation. I will stop sharing and try and go back.
Okay, thank you so much, Sheryl. That is a lot of information to digest.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Yes.
it is. Hopefully not too long.
No, not too long. Just, you know, a lot of information and very clearly, you know, a lot of information that we all need to know. So we do have a couple of questions and from the chat, and I want to remind everyone that, you know, you can continue to add your questions in the chat, and also you can use the raised hand feature, and so, you know, please do use that if you'd like to ask your question personally to Sheryl. But the first question is, when do you have to be whole as it relates to bringing back laid off employees? For example, we are a seasonal business and brought folks back in June, but we are likely to lay off again in the fall. We do not want it to impact our forgiveness. What is the requirement? Is it December 31st? The date you apply for forgiveness, into the period of PPP spend?
Sure. So two things. One is your covered period. You want to document who's covered for the period. And when, especially as kids are going back to college, if somebody voluntarily resigns, then, there we go, later. If somebody, you want to just note that for your own record. The SBA does have the opportunity to audit at any time. However, if you put, you know, Joe Smith went back to college on August the 17th, that means he voluntarily quit. You probably also applied as a seasonal business, so you're really not going to have any hiccups with that. But again, it's all about record keeping. So it's okay to lay off people again in the fall. However, people generally are leaving for school. But if you have to actually lay off people, it would generally be outside of your covered period. And you have already applied for forgiveness. So you would be okay at that time.
Okay, and then related to that question, the next question is, we are relying heavily on PPP forgiveness, but our qualification for forgiveness, full-time equivalent safe harbor, has been eroded by our inability to submit a forgiveness application, as the FTE count is now as of the date of the application instead of June 30th. Will there be any provision for this implication?
Our qualification for forgiveness, safe harbor, has been eroded by our inability to submit. Hold on. I'm a little confused because the qualification for safe harbor should allow you to have exemptions so that you do qualify. And I think what I'm starting to hear is there's some confusion. Seasonal businesses have a different covered period than non-seasonal businesses. So a seasonal business just has to either pay their employees, until they exhaust their funds if they can't be open, or pay their employees till they exhaust their funds and apply. So if there's a follow-up to that, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Yes. So Preston he's down in the clarification. Do you see that, Cheryl?
Oh, there we go. We were at or near full FTE, but we have lost some folks. So again, they voluntarily quit. So you just have to document that somebody quit. If they were fired, you would document that as well. Individual was fired. So if you had to lay off people, remember PPP was intended that people were getting paid even if you were operating at suboptimal levels. So, that was pretty clear. So if you were already laying off people because you were losing business, that might impact your loan forgiveness because it was intended to help keep you at fuller employment levels. If you have the same FTEs at the end of the covered period, and because of business reasons, reduced hours after the end of the covered period, you do qualify. Again, you need to just document because of business reasons that you had to lay off more workers. And I see what you're saying. It's a little confusing. I think what I'm going to do regarding dates is I'm going to write very clearly and send that over to Nina and Vicki to send out as a follow-up. I'm also going to put my contact information if there is further questions on these dates, because I think it has to be spelled out first. And then I think you're going to see a lot of ahas by people. And then I'm happy to further follow up individually with people if they are still confused individually. So if we can move on from dates, that would be great.
Okay. We have a question about the Carl. Is Cape May County eligible for that?
So it depends on your census tract. So if you are in an area defined as a hub zone, an opportunity zone, there's just different kind of zones out there. And my suggestion would be to contact, if you think you would like such a loan, you have to be underserved in some way. And some people don't know that they are in a census tract that qualifies, or they could be in a NAICS code, and that stands for their industry, that they're underrepresented. My suggestion would be to contact one of the Carl representatives. I know women tend to be in the underserved, minorities tend to qualify, but definitely if you are interested, contact one of those three community advantage lenders, and they'll tell you specifically whether you qualify or not.
Okay.
Great question.
Okay. and I think we had a question here from John Sabella, but I think that you answered that because it had to do with the full-time equivalents. John, you can let me know if that was the case or not. I had a question, wait for John to let us know. But on the EIDL, which I know that you are not a specialist in that, but just about that, with the loan payments deferred for 12 months, interest does accrue. Can
10
you
months.
can you go ahead and start paying on the EIDL, or do you need
Absolutely.
to wait the 12 months?
Yeah, so two things I want to, you can prepay any loan at any time with the SBA. You don't have to wait ever. And the second thing I want to, it just got in the news, I actually forgot to put this on the slide, it just happened, was the EIDL advance. That is subtracted from loan forgiveness. So if you got a $20,000 PPP loan and you got an EIDL advance of $10,000, that $10,000 automatically reduces what is forgiven. So, and the reason being is that it's considered double dipping. So you would have to utilize that $10,000 of that EIDL advance you received to pay back $10,000 of that PPP loan, or that $10,000 gets converted into a loan. So thank you for bringing up EIDL. And I'm going to add a slide. So sorry about that. That's a big point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but not on the if you accept the EIDL loan, is the EIDL advance subtracted off of the EIDL loan?
No. So the EIDL loan is a separate entity unto itself.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with EIDL advances subtracted from EIDL. The EIDL advance is actually how it reacts to the PPP loan. So if you did not get a PPP loan, but you got an EIDL advance, that EIDL advance does not have to be repaid.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat.
Okay, but I will then get, so what I believe I need to get to you is the PowerPoint, which I think I've already given you. And I'm going to send over the 2 instruction sheets as well as the 2 loan forgiveness applications for dissemination. And then I can definitely hear loud and clear there's some confusions on dates. So I will make that crystal clear, hopefully. But if I don't, my contact information will be provided for individual follow-up.
Great. Well, thank you. I'd like to let everybody know too about our 12 o'clock noon program tomorrow with Congressman Jeff Van Drew, and invite everyone to register for that. We are looking forward to having a conversation with him about many of the federal initiatives going on right now, and the stalled phase 4 program. So hopefully everyone will join us for that. There's still time to register. That event is sponsored by Comcast. And as always, if you have ideas about programming that would be beneficial, please reach out and let us know. We'll be happy to research that and see if we can put a program together. Sheryl, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time and wealth of information. We look forward to meeting with you again soon. So
great. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yes, thank you. You too.